Hi, my name is Khalid Ahmed Khan, and today I'll be talking to you about advanced costing concepts. Specifically, we will look at um, cost rate tables in resources. Uh, when would you use something like this? Well, typically you could have costing that is based on location. For instance, you have staff that is on your main location. When they go off location to a field visit, they might have different charge rates. So how do you handle those? You could also have costing that is tied to a particular period. So maybe the contract has an escalation clause which says that you're going to that the rates will go up after 2 months. You can so how to take care of that, and also you can take care of things like overtime if you're using resources to crash a schedule. Um, so, so all of these concepts are pretty much implemented the same way across multiple versions of Microsoft projects. So anything after MS Project 2010 will have these features available. So let's get on with it. Okay, so we're in Microsoft project. Let's start with a blank project, and I'll first go to resource sheet and create a resource called labor. And for this, since I'm going to be using 4 of these, so let me set up the rates for it. So let's say the standard rate is 100, the overtime rate is 200, and we'll do one thing additional. So click on information tab, and that brings additional information that you can put in. In this case, what I want to do is go to cost, and I want to change the effective rate for this resource after a certain date. So let's say this is the 30th, and on the 10th I want to change the rate, and the rate would go up to 150, and the overtime rate would go up to 300. And if you see over here, you have additional tables that you can configure. So in this case, I want to configure another table, which is B. And for B, basically, I'm setting it up so that if this labor resource is used on a remote site, my cost is higher, so I'll be charging more. So let's say I'm going to put this as 400 and 800. Okay, so that's set up now. So the base rate for labor is 100 and overtime is 200, but that changes on 10th, and it becomes 150 and 300. And if I send this labor to a remote location, then it's 400 and 800. Done. Let's go to Gantt chart and create 4 tasks over here. So task 1 is with the standard rate. Task 2 is going to use overtime, and task 3 is beyond 10th, which means it will then start getting new rates. So this is change in rate, and task 4 is something that is at a remote location, so it is a different rate level. Okay. So put all of them as 10. Okay, and so let's add the resources. So the resource is labor, and add all this here. So you don't need this, so I'll get rid of predecessors, and I'll add a column for cost. So you can see the cost is 9,200 for all of them. I'm going to go to project, set a baseline also for this. Okay, baseline 1. Okay, let's now go back to task, click on details, and on the detail form, right click again and change this to resource usage. Okay, and when you go to resource usage, go to form and also click on cost. Okay, so this is basically showing me the number of hours for labor for each one of the resources, and since it's 10 days and 8 hours per day, so that's 80 hours. So I'm going to add some new columns over here so that I can then use overtime. And for this, I'm going to use first column I want is overtime work. Just overtime cost. And finally, I want a cost. So I want the cost rate table, and I want the total cost. Okay, so the total cost for everything is the same, right? If we can look over here, you can see the number of hours booked multiplied by the number of hours booked multiplied by the rate that we set. So it was 100, so it becomes 800. So that's pretty much standard. Let's go to the task 2 and add some overtime on it and see what happens. So if I go to task 2 over here, and I'll add, if I want to take 2 days away, so then I need to put in 16 hours of overtime. So let me get to 16 hours, see what happens. Okay, and you can see now the durations become 8 days because I have 16 hours of overtime. So the cost has gone from 9,200 to 10,200. Let's go to the next task, which is task 3, and in this case what we want to do is we want to move this task and then see what happens to the rate, because we've already set it up so that the rates are going to change. Let's see how that works. So I'm going to move this task forward. You have a change in rate, and you can see that the change in rate so the price has increased because instead of 100 we set a new rate which was 150. So based on that, you can see that everything is changed. And if I also add the overtime to it, you can see the overtime rate over there is also different because we changed the overtime rate also. Okay, so what Microsoft Project is doing is it's actually calculating the rate based on the rate list that applies on that period. If you are partially in 2 periods, it will do the calculation accordingly. So if I put this here, so it's partially here, you can see that the so you have this part which is still being calculated at the old rate, and you have this part after the 10th which is now has the new rate. So this is like a really nice feature. If an activity is slipping or it gets into delays, you can actually figure out what the impact is going to be, and you can also set it up so that you can maybe on longer projects you can put in economic adjustments in your rates. Last, we have the 4th task, which we said is in a remote location. So we have a separate rate table for this. So now if I come to the rate table over here and I change this to B, you can see that the rate table B comes in and then the costs are completely different. So it is in the same period, but it's a different rate table because this rate table applies for offsite work. So what we looked at is setting the standard rate. We looked at how to use the overtime rate, how to in a way so that the rate can change over time. We looked at that, and also we looked at alternate rate lists. So you have multiple rate lists. Instead of if you did not use the multiple rate tables, you would have actually created 2 separate labor resources, one that is working on your regular site and one that's working on the remote site. That doesn't make a lot of sense. This is an easier method for handling those situations. Okay, hope that was useful. Thank you.